Block more than 24 national monuments, the California sites that could lose protected status.
If we had lots of vacancies and low rents, it wouldn't be such a bad thing. People could go somewhere else, but we don't. There's nowhere else for people to go.
They're calling it a perfect storm about to hit San Diego's housing crisis, why thousands of San Diegans are at risk of losing affordable housing.
We try and find those spaces where people might be waiting at a gate or waiting near a security line and really look at how art could transform those areas.
Cleared for takeoff, an artistic experience at LAX. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. More criticism tonight of Mayor Kevin Faulconer's plan to find a new police chief, which includes 4 community forums and an interviewing panel, the members of which will remain anonymous until after the chief is selected. A number of advocacy groups held a press conference this morning saying the mayor's plan lacks transparency and does not fully include communities of color. Councilman David Alvarez attended the press conference and says the membership of the selection panel should be public.
We need to know who they are. We need to know what interests they represent. We want to make sure that they're diverse and that they represent the different viewpoints from people throughout San Diego.
City Council President Myrtle Cole tweeted her support, saying she would ask the mayor to hold community meetings in Council District 8 and 9, which include San Ysidro, Barrio Logan, and City Heights. City officials say the confidentiality of panel members is considered best practice and ensures the process isn't compromised. Current Police Chief Shelley Zimmerman retires in March. A federal judge in San Diego today ordered the U.S. government to turn in records related to a deported Mexican named Juan Manuel Montes. Montes is said to be the first deported DACA recipient. DACA is an Obama-era immigration status for people who entered the U.S. illegally as children. The U.S. is arguing that Montes wasn't deported but left voluntarily. His attorney, Nora Preciado, says the government can't be trusted because it has released false information about Montes.
We can't afford to take them at their word. We want to see what other records of evidence there are, and that's what the judge ordered today, that they turn over all those documents and evidence so that he can take a deep look at what happened to Juan Manuel on the 18th.
Yesterday, the judge said the case will go to trial. KPBS reached out to the government, but it declined to comment, citing a policy of not discussing pending litigation. Daylight shootings, kidnappings, and an increase in homicides have led to an updated travel warning for many parts of Mexico. The State Department has flagged several popular destinations. In Baja California, for instance, U.S. citizens are asked to exercise caution when visiting places such as Tijuana, Rosarito, due to an increase in homicides and violence in areas frequented by citizens. In Los Cabos, officials say caution is also needed due to turf battles and a shooting incident that left a bystander injured. For Puerto Vallarta, the State Department has stepped up warnings recommending U.S. citizens avoid traveling there altogether due to, quote, continued instability. Ev Mead is the director of USD's Transborder Institute. He points out most of the murders are targeted.
It's really important to note 2 things about this. One, foreigners have not been targeted in the wave of violence in Mexico over the last 10 years or really in either of these 2 places that were signaled out in this most recent revision of the travel warning. And then 2, if you compare the rates of violence in these places with lots of places in the United States, they're pretty comparable. It's not demonstrably worse in Los Cabos than it is in many large American cities. And the State Department also didn't say you shouldn't go. They have stronger warnings that they can issue, and they didn't give those in this case. This was just an update.
The updated travel advisory now includes Cancun and the entire Caribbean coast, which was previously not included. Support for a measure that would eliminate the state's traditional money bail system is growing at the Capitol. Civil rights advocates and corrections officers gather to push for the controversial bill this afternoon. Supporters of the legislation say the current bail system unfairly penalizes the poor and communities of color who are unable to pay thousands in bail cost. Instead, many are forced to wait for trial in jail.
How many people today are in jail that don't pose a threat to society, that will appear in court? How much is that costing taxpayers, and how much is it impacting their lives?
If the bill passes, bail would be set based on a defendant's ability to pay. If they're found to not pose a threat to the public, still, opponents fear the legislation will make it easier for criminals to avoid trial. Lawmakers say about 60% of people in California jails are awaiting trials. San Diego is in the midst of the worst housing crisis in recent memory, with low vacancy rates, rising rents, and a growing number of people living on the streets. As bad as things are, they're expected to get worse. Thousands of homes set aside for low-income people are set to soar to market rate. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says experts say it's the perfect storm.
I'm at the home of Felicidad Cayabyab in Rancho Peñasquitos.
So that you can see where it's going this. See? Oh, look at that.
In the Philippines?
Yeah, the Philippines.
Her living room floor is covered in boxes. Cayabyab is 92. She's lived in the United States for 27 years. The boxes are full of memories, photos, and mementos that she doesn't want to lose. She's sending all this back to relatives in her native Philippines.
Because we don't know what will be happen here, so I cannot bring all those things.
She doesn't know what will happen because there's a plan to demolish Cayabyab's home and the 321 homes around it. Developer Lennar Homes wants to build 601 houses, townhomes, condos, and apartments here. Cayabyab depends on Social Security and a Section 8 housing voucher to pay rent. If the redevelopment plan is approved, the new homes are expected to be more expensive than the current homes. Cayabyab says she'll be priced out of the neighborhood.
I like this because very quiet, no crime going. Our neighborhood is good.
She says she likes it here. It's a good neighborhood with no crime. The plan to demolish these homes has been years in the making. An agreement to keep these homes affordable for low-income people expired in 2010. And with skyrocketing housing prices, the property owner can make a lot more money renting nicer apartments to wealthier tenants.
This is a map that illustrates where the at-risk existing affordable apartment homes are in the county of San Diego.
Ann Wilson is a senior vice president of Community Housing Works, a nonprofit affordable housing developer based in San Diego. She says because funding for low-income housing has been inconsistent over the decades, a lot of affordability restrictions are about to expire all at once.
And when they expire, the owner has the ability to sell the property at a great profit because whoever comes in there can raise all the rents. Or that owner themselves can just raise all the rents. And there's no protection to the tenants.
Of the 32,000 affordable homes in San Diego County, about 7% of them are set to lose their affordability agreements within 5 years. Within 10 years, that share jumps to about 14%. That represents thousands of San Diegans, seniors, the disabled, working-class families, at risk of evictions or homelessness. And Wilson says this is coming at the worst possible time.
So there's a perfect storm happening now with both the HUD expirations happening and now the tax credit expirations happening at a time when we have the worst housing crisis that we've ever experienced. If we had lots of vacancies and low rents, it wouldn't be such a bad thing. People could go somewhere else, but we don't. There's nowhere else for people to go.
That's because housing production simply hasn't kept pace with population and job growth. Fights have played out in Hillcrest, Bay Park, and Encinitas as residents resist new homes coming into their neighborhoods. Wilson says this hurts our economy, our schools, even our mental health.
If you're on the edge and have very little money, you're not able to give your family what you want them, and that hurts all of us.
I will like this place quiet.
Back at her home in Rancho Peñasquitos, Felicidad Cayabyab is anxious about the future.
What kind of life we are waiting for us? That I am thinking, oh my God, what kind of love, what kind of life waiting for me if they will demolish this?
What kind of life is waiting for me, she asks.
I have nothing I have no place to move.
I have no place to move. The plan to redevelop her neighborhood goes before the city council later this year. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
California doctors have legally been able to give terminally ill people a lethal dose of drugs for more than a year. KPBS health reporter Kenny Goldberg tells us now they're saying more and more patients are asking about it.
Discussing end-of-life care is tough for both patients and doctors. But physicians say since the End-of-Life Options Act took effect, they've been having more conversations with patients about dying. Dr. Sunita Shailam is a specialist in family medicine in San Diego. She says her patients want to find out how the right to die law works.
Over this past year, I haven't heard anyone who's against it. I've only received people who've been happy that this is an option.
California officials say in the first 6 months of the law's existence, 111 people took their own lives with a lethal prescription. Some doctors don't support that option. They say with proper pain management, no one has to suffer at the end of life. Kenny Goldberg, KPBS News.
Doctors in the Netherlands are using a lab-created mini gut to treat cystic fibrosis. They're growing these intestines outside patients' bodies to test how they'll respond to drugs. Associated Press reporter Kathy Young has the story.
53-year-old Els Vanderheiden has cystic fibrosis. As her symptoms worsened, she was forced to quit her job and give up what she loves most, riding horses.
Over the last 5-6 years, my energy really went, well, to a very, very low level.
Hi. Her doctors initially ruled out an expensive new drug called Orkambi because it hasn't been proven to help her rare form of cystic fibrosis. But after researchers grew a mini organ from her cells and it responded to the treatment, doctors knew it would help Vanderheiden too.
The moment we saw these mini guts growing, we were struck by how vigorous they look. They are extremely healthy.
Hans Clavers is one of the scientists who pioneered the technique of growing mini organs, or so-called organoids, that mimic features of full-sized organs without the surrounding tissue or blood supply. In the case of Vanderheiden, they grew a mini gut, which they found easier to grow than other organs, to serve as a close stand-in to test drugs.
They're small, they're only maybe up to 1 millimeter large, but they are complete. They have everything that you would see in a real gut, only at a very small scale.
Cystic fibrosis is primarily a lung disease, but it affects every organ in the body, including the digestive tract. A defect in the gene which produces a protein responsible for balancing the salt content of cells lining the organs results in a sticky mucus buildup. Normally, the cells puff up as they start processing salt and water, but that doesn't happen to people with cystic fibrosis. Scientists tested certain drugs on patients' custom-made mini guts to see what would happen.
By looking at the swelling phenotype, we can see whether a drug is going to be active in an individual patient or not.
Netherlands researchers hope to grow mini guts for all 1,500 Dutch patients, of whom about 10% have a rare type of cystic fibrosis. They're about a third of the way done and have identified about 60 patients who would benefit from drugs, including Orkambi. The study is part of a bigger effort to grow mini organs to test treatment options for various diseases, not just cystic fibrosis.
In general, this is a technology that creates hope for a patient. So for some patients, it's changing lives nowadays, but for almost all patients, it gives hope for the future.
While the idea sounds promising, some scientists say there are obstacles in using mini organs, especially to potentially treat cancer. Molecular biologist Matthew Garnett, who was not connected to the study, says testing of cancer patients must happen fast to make a difference in their treatment.
Now, we're not there yet. There's a number of things that still need to be done in terms of improving the efficiency of the method, making it more robust, and really understanding how predictive those tests in the lab are of how a patient responds.
While the future of many organs are still being explored, patients like Vanderheiden are benefiting now. She's been taking the drug since last December. She says her energy has returned and she's able to enjoy some of her favorite activities again. Kathy Young, Associated Press.
UC San Diego scientists are studying how communities of bacteria influence our health, and crowdsourcing may help unlock the secret. It's the inspiration behind one of the largest studies to date.
A project of this scale has not been done before. We're dealing with 3 million genes on the bacteria side and 20,000 genes on the human side.
By harnessing the efforts of very large numbers of volunteers, we can do something that exceeds the scale of what we have access to by a factor of thousands.
Scientists will tap into the IBM World Community Grid. It's a volunteer initiative. It uses internet-connected computers that aren't being used by their owners and can add processing power to experiments. This could help scientists understand how it all interacts with human biochemistry. The work could result in new prevention techniques or treatments. We may soon know the fate of the nation's monuments, including 5 here in California. President Trump has called for a full review, and the report is due back Thursday. This may include revoking their protected status or downsizing them. In California, the Mojave Trails and Giant Sequoia National Monuments are 2 of the better-known sites that may be impacted. Tommy Howe is president of San Diego County Democrats for Action. He says if this protected land is removed, other monuments could also be targeted.
The precedent that could be set here is terrible, and it doesn't just affect potentially Cabrillo National Monument. These are some of the most special places in the United States. These have been identified, in some cases decades ago, to be preserved as is.
Today started out with light drizzle. Erin Calandra has more in tonight's forecast.
We are seeing beautiful conditions here today in San Diego County. No wet weather, very comfortable temperatures. So taking a look at our satellite and radar for the last couple of hours, pretty quiet. We don't see anything really going on. Taking a look at the bigger picture here across the Southwest, maybe some pop-up showers in places like New Mexico into Colorado. Nevada is even drying out for the most part, maybe some sprinkles here and there. But Southern California, nice and dry, 67 degrees. That's our overnight low. Increase in clouds as usual in the morning time when you wake up. It's going to be a bit muggy, a bit cloudy out there, especially along the coast. Oceanside tonight, 63 degrees for the low. San Diego, 67. In Ramona, 57 degrees for the low. Borrego Springs, 76. And Mount Laguna, cooler. 56 degrees for the low temperature. Tomorrow, those clouds are going to break up right around lunchtime. And we'll have plenty of sunshine. So Ocean City making it to 74 degrees. San Diego, same story. Poway, 80 degrees. And in the deserts here, we're still in the triple digits. Mount Laguna, 75. And in Alpine, 81 degrees for the high temperature. Plenty of sunshine for everyone. Here we are along the coast for the next couple of days. It's going to be nice and dry. Could see some patchy fog in the morning, especially Saturday, but then it's going to be a nice warm day reaching 80 degrees. Inland, again, it's going to be very sunny. Saturday, we could see some patchy fog, but then reaching 88 degrees. Sunday, it's going to be hot, 94 degrees with sunshine. In the mountains, we are in the 70s on Thursday, and then we bump it up to the 80s for the rest of the week. So it's going to be a bit warm by Monday. We even reach 90 degrees here in the mountains. So that's going to be awfully warm with lots of sun. And in the deserts, triple digits all week long. Our lows on Sunday, 83 degrees. So certainly going to be a hot one for you with plenty of sun. So put on the sunblock. Make sure you're staying hydrated and even check on your elderly neighbors here in the deserts. Make sure everyone is staying safe. For KPBS News, I'm Erin Calandra.
SDG&E says it will vigorously challenge a proposed decision that could prevent it from boosting consumer rates to help pay for damage caused by the wildfires of 2007. An investigation found that 3 wildfires were ignited by SDG&E facilities. The San Diego-based utility company was the target of many lawsuits by homeowners and others who suffered damage. SDG&E applied to the State Public Utilities Commission to collect $379 million from ratepayers to help cover the cost. But a judge ruled SDG&E did not act in order to manage the facilities linked to the fires. You can see art at museums and galleries, but a contemporary art festival in Los Angeles is bringing art to where people are already gathered and where it's got a potentially captive audience.
Not all the passengers are going to look at the art or may even have an interest in the art. But our philosophy is that, even just having something in the background, something that might catch their eye, whether it's a color or a texture or something with movement, will still add something to the environment. By interacting with some of the artworks, it might help them just to sort of slow down for a minute, just maybe take something in that they hadn't thought about, and it kind of enhances the overall experience at the airport. I think LAX has always had sort of an interesting design aesthetic to it, actually. You have the theme building. It's a very iconic piece of architecture right in the middle of the airport. And then we have the pylons that are welcoming passengers and visitors. As well as some of the historic mosaic murals you'll find in the tunnels. And I think our program is continuing that design aesthetic through the curation of our art exhibitions, from photography to painting to video art to installations to sculpture and even dance. One of the artworks we get a lot of feedback from passengers is Joyce DeLaw's Elevate in Terminal 3, featuring these origami paper airplanes that's been imprinted with the words of the Geneva Conventions as well as the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And I think the principles that are listed in those documents are really important to keep in mind, especially in an airport such as LAX. Hashtag LAX Poppies is located in our meet and greet area of Terminal 1, right next to baggage claim. So people are sitting there waiting for their friends and family to arrive, and the artwork that's on display there is playing off the idea of presenting a bouquet of flowers to a loved one upon their arrival. So we have these giant portraits of poppies, and the title is an invitation to basically take a photo of themselves in front of the paintings and upload it with the hashtag. And so there's this other virtual exhibition taking place online as well. At LAX, we have a unique opportunity. We have over 50 million passengers on an annual basis, and we have 8 different terminals to show a wide variety of artworks. And I think it's very reflective of the creative community here in Los Angeles.
Welcome to Los Angeles International Airport. Please keep your personal belongings with you at all times.
As a curator, I've worked in galleries, museums, but when I submit a proposal to do an installation at LAX, it's a very different space to handle in so many different ways. So it's very challenging, but also really exciting.
When we were shown Terminal 3, it was this gargantuan white box. We were a little overwhelmed. One wall is 210 feet long. We had a time frame of 3 to 4 days for installation. So we had to develop a piece that could go up in that amount of time.
We wanted to create some moments of intimacy, but I think, and also playfulness. So we wanted to add color. We wanted to not make the space feel so large And so one of the first decisions that we made was how to deal with the long wall. And painting a giant black shape was a great platform to start with, because then we could build off of that.
When I'm walking through the terminals and I see somebody who might be in a big rush but suddenly stop for a minute and look at our artwork, then I'm just reminded what we're trying to do. And then I know we've given them something to think about, some kind of memory maybe to take on their journey with them.
That story was from Artbound, a production of KCET in Los Angeles. More than 2,500 pets were adopted in San Diego County during the weekend's Clear the Shelters campaign. 15 local shelters waived normal adoption fees to encourage people to adopt a shelter pet. Nationwide, 70,000 pets found homes during the campaign that ended Saturday. Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Morning Edition, the future of transgender troops. Many of them worry their relationship with the VA might be tainted after the president tweeted they were no longer allowed to serve. And on Midday Edition, fake news, spooky mysteries, and love stories. That and more at the San Diego Festival of Books this weekend. That's tomorrow at noon on KPBS Radio. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.